Very early, it was building the product and the infrastructure. So I was head of product, also head of engineering, leading that team. Albeit I didn't have that background, but I knew exactly what I wanted to build because I was building for myself as a salesperson.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Confessions of a B2B Entrepreneur. My name is Tom, your host, and today we have a big episode. Kris Rudeegraap of Sendoso, founder and co-CEO, is on the show. And Kris talks about his journey from essentially building the product as a non-technical co-founder to running the business today. He even gets his calendar out and talks us through what he's doing today on the day of recording. So awesome episode. Before we jump in, big shout out to Fame for producing this show. If you like guests like Kris, audio like this, or want a show to be promoted like this one, and then go to fame.so and request a proposal. Big episode. I'm sure you're going to love it. Let's jump in right now with Kris. Kris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Excited to be here.
We've got some hot takes today, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to share some opinions.
For those that are not aware of Kris, Sendoso has been going for a while. Seems like a big company. Love the brand. I want to dig into first the journey, and then we have some interesting opinions, it seems, on go-to-market that we're also going to jump into. So first question, I think it was 8 years ago you founded the company, right?
Exactly.
And I would love to understand if there was 4 seasons to your role. Sendoso, it might not be 4, it might be less. What were they? How did the role change?
Yeah. So, very early, it was building the product and the infrastructure. So I was head of product, also head of engineering, leading that team. Albeit I didn't have that background, but I knew exactly what I wanted to build because I was building for myself as a salesperson. So I spent a decade in sales prior to starting, then said, hey, I want to build a product. And so was managing all of our product and development timelines and software development, as well as the infrastructure for all of our logistics. So there's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes that have and go into shipping things and warehousing and global warehouses and supply chain. So I think my first role was product and supply chain. That transitioned once we launched. We're like, okay, we got our V1, let's go. And I started selling. So I was talking to customers like crazy. Also started selling candidates. I had to sell them on the dream. Hey, you should join Sendoso, and here's why. And then I was selling VCs on fundraising. So year after year after year for the first few years, it was selling VCs on why they need to invest in what we're doing. Those two transitioned into a bit more strategic roles for probably years 3 through 8, which was more one-on-one people management, still a lot of recruiting, not focusing on every customer, but just strategic customers, and then focusing a lot more on partners. And then now I think it's even more strategic, where it's very much strategic initiatives, very much focused on our top customers, fire drills, and then a lot of thought leadership recently too, focusing a bit more on evangelizing the category even more for maybe the laggards or certain industries that haven't heard about us yet.
Wow, what a journey of 7 roles in 8 years.
Exactly.
My first question is, you clearly were able to build a good product in those first few years, despite it seems not having any direct experience in products or tech, right? You can code, presumably you hadn't been a product manager before.
Yeah.
But you did, I guess, you knew the customer because it was yourself.
Yep.
Any tips for a non-technical co-founder trying to do what you did?
Yeah. So I think some of my tips is have confidence and conviction that you can do it. I think some people don't even get to the starting line because they're like, I don't know how to build a product, so I'm just going to never build anything, and I'm just going to be a entrepreneur and just want to do it, but never do it. So get past that hump. Then I think it's, at the end of the day, being good at articulating ideas into mock-ups that then can turn into good designs, that then can turn into products, and then being meticulous at how you prioritize, whether it's a Kanban or sprint process. How do you very much focus on what's the most important things? And then, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to then getting user feedback. And I was talking to customers very early on. I was talking to myself because I knew what I wanted, but then there was very early customer development too. And I do think some product builders end up building in the silo for too long and need to talk to customers earlier.
Got it. And then in terms of the growth, when you had the V1 done, it was the main channel you selling, or there other ways of getting customers?
Yeah. So luckily, my co-founder was also ex-sales. So we basically had the two co-founders were ex-sales. So we hit the phones. We started Sendoso sending stuff. We did everything. And so we both really hustled to get like our first 50 customers, which was a critical metric for us. And then we started hiring more, and dividing and conquering more.
How do you split the responsibilities in the first 4 years with the co-founder?
Yeah, so he focused mostly on sales and some partnerships the first 4 years, and I did almost everything else. So I think that was helpful. I think sales is a lifeblood. And so having him focus day in and day out on everything sales related really helped drive our traction and drive our momentum.
Presumably you had to raise money right from the start to build the product, right?
Yes, in the sense of we put some of our own money in to bootstrap for call it like the first 6 months. Then we did a little bit of a friends and family for a couple 100,000 more. And that got us to launch. And then once we got some traction, so once I think we had about 500,000 in ARR, then we went and got seed funding, 2 million. And then we used that to get to about 5 million in ARR, which then we went and raised our Series A of 12 million. And then turned that into about 10 million, and then went and raised Series B, and then turned that into about 25 million and raised our Series C.
Yeah, it makes sense. It seems like as opposed to just raising 2 million without having anything, you guys were as lean as you possibly could, which it seems set you up for success in later rounds.
Yeah, I think there's a couple factors for that. One is that we were kind of against the odds in having two sales co-founders as co-founders. So it wasn't like we were what Silicon Valley would say, ex-MIT engineer and ex-co-founder who just sold his company for 2 billion and wants to do it again. We didn't have any of that. So we had to prove ourselves based on the market traction. We also had a unique business model too at the time, which was we were selling SaaS, but there was also this payments and balance on the platform, which was a nuance to SaaS investors that they didn't know how to look at that. So there was a lot of nuances that were working against us. But if you look at our customers, you look at our revenue, and you look at the chart going up, as an investor, you're like, that makes sense. I can get behind that.
You're so right. Especially maybe in the later or slightly later phases, you're selling to employees, you're selling to customers, you're selling to investors and partners. And so having that skill set, I think is crucial actually.
Totally. And I think there should be more sales co-founders or go-to-market, maybe marketing background, because it's so critical to have a distribution strategy, to go to market, to get customers. And like you said, when I was in sales and I went and talked to a VC and they told me no, and I had to go talk to the next one, I didn't cry. I was just like, cool, I know how to take no's. I'll just go on to the next. Or I'll show a rebuttal and I'll fight back and I'll win over that candidate or win over that VC. And I think that hustle mentality, that sales acumen isn't as easy to learn if you're maybe an engineering background and you're maybe scared to go talk to customers or maybe timid to talk to a VC. It could hurt you.
On that note though, I've heard you say before the founder-led sales to get to product market fit is fake news.
Yeah. So how I look at that is I think a lot of people talk about getting to product market fit. And a lot of founders will say, hey, I can do that through founder-led sales. And so they go out there, and in our case, they sell their 50 customers and they're like, great, let's go raise money. We've got product market fit. Everyone needs to know about us. And then what happens is they then say, okay, now I'm going to try to go hire people. And if those strangers can't sell the product, then it falls flat. And I think the big thing that I try to look at here when I'm either angel investing or advising is that founders who are extremely passionate with their life on the line can sell Eskimos to ice, quote unquote. And so you kind of get this false positive of great, we have customers that are willing to buy, but it was really because you, the founder, were just so passionate. And so what I like to say is you want go-to-market fit, which is inclusive of product market fit, but it's showing that you can get a couple strangers, a couple of sales reps, maybe an SDR and a sales rep to come in and drive some customer closed won deals. And then I think you are at a point where you have confidence in a go-to-market fit, which is inclusive of product market fit.
Totally get it. As well as having that passion, that the founder will often have the deep industry expertise as well. So it can advise and sell. I'm sure you two had deep gifting experience and sales process experience. So I actually agree with the hot take. Let's move to the next one.
Sure.
Why you need PMM before DQ. I assume that his product and marketing a product marketing manager for demand generation?
Yeah. So I think my hot take on that is that a lot of early stage companies will think, okay, I need to get some leads and I need to then hire marketing and specifically demand gen to start growing our pipeline and funnel. And while that can work, I think it often leads to like go to market tech debt. So if we're thinking about like engineering and product, you have this tech debt where you like skip over things in the early days just because you want to build quick. And then you're like, shit, I built this wrong. Like I need to go back and I need to like re-engineer the foundation. And so I see that happening a lot in kind of go to market in the early years where you're just so gung ho on demand gen, but you don't have that product marketing foundation and infrastructure in. And what I mean by that is pricing and packaging isn't thoroughly thought through. Competitive differentiation isn't thoroughly thought through. Go-to-market enablement isn't thoroughly thought through. ICP analysis, your vision and category and storytelling. And all those things are kind of like indirectly going to make your demand engine like 10 times better. And sure, you could still hack together getting leads, but if those things aren't in place, you're going to end up being a few years in with a lot of leads, a lot of customers, but really a lot of missing foundational components.
Makes total sense. Can we dig into how companies get gifting wrong?
Sure.
Because I've heard like horror stories, and presumably you have the knowledge to make it work well.
Yeah, so I'd say I'll take this in two ways. One is mistakes I see, and then two is like some misconceptions that I think associate with those. So I think one mistake I see is not thinking enough on the before and after of gifting and using it as a golden gun where I'm just going to close my eyes, send some gifts, and then everyone's just going to reply and I'm going to get a million meetings or whatever, what you're looking to accomplish. And I think that's false. I think gifting is a part of a multi-touch outbound sequence or multi-touch customer engagement sequence where you can't just be in the silo and send gifts. You need to be thinking about the emails, the calls, the landing pages, et cetera. So I see people not thinking holistically enough about the journey around it. The other thing I see is people testing small batches. And I think as if you're a marketer listening, it's kind of like SEO. You're not just going to like put up one blog post and then think you're going to get like 100 inbound SEO leads tomorrow. It takes some time. Or like a more personal example, if you're working out, if you go hit the gym today, you're not like, oh man, I just lost like 20 pounds today. No, it takes time. And so I think some people will test a channel way too small and way too short and be like, oh, I sent like 50 gifts out and I got like some replies, but like, I'm not sure if it worked. Well, that's because you got to think about it as like a whole year and think about this holistically. So those are kind of the bigger mistakes. I do see some interesting misconceptions. People think that like gifting is expensive, which I think is a bad way to look at it, because if you look under the hood and it's, hey, $1 I spend on gifting generates $4 in pipeline. Well, what if I spend $1 in ads and it generates $2 in pipeline? Well, now what's more expensive? So I think there's that component. There's also lots of gifts you can send that are sub $25, sub $10. The other thing I think about that is like, if you can send a gift, grab someone's attention today. Otherwise, if not using gifting and you just send an email only sequence and it takes you 2-3 months to get that meeting, well, what's the opportunity cost of that deal in your pipeline like 2-3 months earlier? So I think that's critical. A lot of people have the mistake of like, I don't want to do gifting because I don't have mailing address data. Well, we're like, well, we can augment that for you, or we have an address confirmation feature where you can send an email and get their address. So I think that's a mistake some people make. And then I think the last one is really not knowing what to send and having like paralysis. And we offer solutions where you can enter an email or a persona and we'll suggest what you should gift to that person, or even have like a campaign services team. So yeah, I think those are some of the mistakes / reasons why people mistakenly don't use gifting as much.
What's your view on sending branded gifts?
I'm a big believer in having a lot of different options in your arsenal to send at the right time. And I think the branded gift works well if you're maybe attracting someone to a conference or event and you want to get them to come to your booth, or maybe it's a thank you right after they jumped on a demo, or a customer welcome kit with some branded swag. I think in some cases, if you're an unknown brand and the first thing you send somebody is a t-shirt, say, hey, here's a t-shirt, book a meeting, that will probably fall flat unless you're like a well-known brand, like maybe like a Figma, and you have this huge design user community. Well, you could use your brand up in front of top of funnel, but branded items usually can work better, whether it's tied to an event tied to a reason why you're sending brand, or lower in the funnel when you've built that relationship more.
What's the favorite gifting campaign that either you've sent or you've seen a customer send?
I have infinite. And a lot of these are visual. So for listeners, you can go to like sendoso.com and see our success stories or our customer examples so you can actually see them in action. But some of the more successful ones that I've loved over the years. So Gong did one recently where they are sending piñatas out and they sourced and influenced some like over 30 million pipeline. So that was a cool one. Gainsight sent out a book called the Customer Success Economy book, which their CEO wrote. And I think that's an effective strategy for sharing thought leadership. It also influenced over 5 million in outbound source pipeline. Verkada has done an amazing job sending out Yeti mugs. And they've actually are really critical on the ROI, where they've seen for every dollar they spent, they've generated $4 in ROI, which was literally printing money for them as they send these Yeti mugs out. And then we did a fun one recently where we had a themed spooky Halloween kind of theme, and we were sending out these like vampire piñatas. We also integrated that into landing pages, a conference that we went to where we had those SDRs were sending those out to target accounts. And then there's email campaigns with that theme. So it was a really good online, offline, in-person email landing page theme that gifting was included in it.
Let's shift to AI. Are you seeing AI work in outbound processes?
I do. And so I think AI has this like super broad, vague term, and it could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I think that's like the first thing that you got to break down. I think some people just say, oh, AI SDRs, I'm going to close my eyes and then the SDR is just going to do everything for me. And I think we'll get there, but I think it's hard to jump from a team of 50 people to a team of 0, or like that transition doesn't make sense, and will break the minds of CROs and CMOs and like that their process. What we were able to effectively do, and I think what we're seeing is we were able to use AI and to really augment our outbound motion to a way that we made our SDRs way more effective and way more excited about doing work that was more salesmanship than just busy work. So we used Clay and some other AI tools to do a lot of the manual process of getting data, cleaning the data, checking against CRM data, adding into sequences. One of the cool things that we've done with kind of OpenAI and that AI functionality is, I think historically 5-10 years ago, when you were personalizing emails, it would be based on like Salesforce or HubSpot variables. Hi, first name. Hey, I see you work in X industry. You should do this. Instead, you can feed in like a prompt into like ChatGPT or through OpenAI with Clay or other sequencing tools. And it'd be like, write me like a short one sentence on why someone who's at this company and this persona that would be buying Sendoso would need us for this reason. And then you get like a really good one sentence, which is a lot better than just pulling a variable from Salesforce or HubSpot. And I think, so that's a big shift for us. And then the other AI shift is, rather than going after like just a narrow set of accounts and going after like step by step, step one, step two, step three, we've kind of reshifted how we prioritize, all based on kind of intent and scoring, and some of that being AI scoring of these accounts. And so now it's like, who's the next best person that's likely to buy? Let's focus our SDR's time on really one-on-one, high-value gifting, high-value video, high-value social selling, and high-value cold calling, instead of maybe just a random email written by an SDR that's like step 17 of a sequence. That can be automated through AI.
Yeah, that makes sense. Strategic use is not just like trying to get AI to send a load of rubbish emails. It's like strategic using this to optimize.
Yeah.
I want to dig into your day-to-day and management. So if we take today,
Yep.
Obviously you're doing this podcast, what, like roughly, or what else do we have on the to-do list?
Yeah, I got one more podcast. I've got a meeting with my CFO, just catching up on all things kind of finance and strategy.
Is that like a regular, like one-on-one?
Yep. Yeah, that's like a regular one-on-one. I have a meeting with a VC who inbounded to me that was intrigued on what we're doing. I have a meeting with another founder for some tech that we're looking to buy. I have a meeting with one of our partners that I'm looking to try to get more focused on. meeting with another colleague to talk about outbound. And then I have a gym hold.
Got it. So a mixture of like partners, external stuff, buying stuff, and then the internal meeting. How many direct reports do you have?
So right now, really just two. And that's also because I've bifurcated some of my functionality with my co-CEO. So that was a strategic hire about a year and a half ago, brought in a really smart chief business officer who we transitioned into a co-CEO. And I found that that's an effective way for us to divide and conquer parts of the business.
Got it. Okay. And so you're taking finance and then one other area, presumably the sales.
So right now, it's more of a lot of the strategic initiatives. And then that allows me to go talk to customers a lot more. So if I were to like really go 30,000 foot view on what I'm passionate about, what I focus a lot of my days on, it's strategic initiatives, talking to customers, talking to a lot of skip level meetings with colleagues to figure out if there's any fire drills or leaky buckets we can solve for, a lot of partner meetings. And then thought leadership, I'm trying to focus a lot more on creating thought leadership.
Got it. And then what does that leave then the co-CEO, like customer success?
There's a lot more direct reports, a lot more of the forecasting, day-to-day planning, a lot more of the different department cross-functional strategies, collaborating a lot with our chief of staff for organizing our exec staff meetings, board meetings, organizing kind of the day-to-day of the business.
Got it. So in EOS terminology, you would be more of the visionary, it seems, and they would be more of the integrator.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Sounds good. Okay, cool. What would you say is like the highest, at the moment or like recently, that the highest leverage thing or things that you've been doing that have like had a big impact on the company?
I think I will focus some good time on product. I think that has a really high impact on like going to speak to a lot of customers, a lot of advisors, and then figuring out what's critical in our next phase of product growth and product over the next couple quarters and years. I think that's, super impactful. And 8 years into a product, there's a lot of different ways that you can go with your product. And so I have such an ability to go deep into the product, but also see what we've done or what we haven't done and help translate that with our head of product. So I think that is really high value. I think there's a lot of high value content I can create that can be reused. So I think that's been really critical.
You also have like the knowledge of the product since literally day zero. And so that context is probably useful. Let's dig into the thought leadership stuff though. So I presume like a big chunk of that, or maybe all of it, is like content creation. And so we obviously have speaking on other shows.
Yep.
What other formats or like strategies for content creation are you following?
Yep. So there's content that I'm posting to social. There's kind of video snippets that I'm creating that sales teams can use in like rebuttals or thought leadership. There's collaborating with partners to see if we can create more content together from a thought leadership perspective. There's looking out for conferences and speaking events that I can jump into. I think that's critical for thought leadership. Thinking about enablement as thought leadership too, of like where, in terms of product marketing, where is there areas of opportunity for us to differentiate? And then how do we enable the sales team? And how can I play a part in seeing kind of that vision product marketing? And then EBRs with some of our biggest customers, executive business reviews or quarterly business reviews. I'll create slides for like, what's our vision or what's our AI strategy? And that is really helpful jumping on with one of our enterprise customer success managers and getting in front of a large enterprise and talking through kind of our roadmap or our strategy around AI.
Was there someone like in the marketing team that came to you and they're like, Kris, we need you to get big on social. We need you to create loads of content, or was it driven by you?
It was both, I think. I think I saw the opportunity to spend some more of my time there, but marketing was quick to say, yes, please, and empower me with resources or be able to take my content and reuse it in other forms of enablement or amplify it.
Yeah, I've been there a while back when I was that marketing person and trying to get the CEO to support us with the content needs. Sometimes it's hard, but it's great that you embraced it.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, because clearly, let's just say it takes like 20% of your time, and I'm not saying it does, but that is obviously quite expensive because you're an expensive resource for the company, obviously. Yeah. Are the marketing team like holding you to this, like, well, we're investing this much of your time, we're seeing this many demos, we need you to tweak this, or we should stop doing this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the demo connection piece is a bit blurry. And I think that it goes into this mindset of how much time are you investing in brand versus demand gen? And again, there's other things you invest in. But if you think about your marketing initiatives, there's at a high level brand and demand gen. And so I think it's critical to think about both. It's so easy to get lost in demand gen and be like connecting everything you do to lead and then losing out on other bigger awareness opportunities. I even think certain channels, like early days for us, we invested in more field events. And sometimes field events is like harder to justify because you're sitting in a booth and you're like, okay, I got some leads, but what else? I spoke, we didn't convert that room. We didn't booth scan everyone or scan everyone in that room that we spoke on. But we were sitting in a booth next to HubSpot or next to Adobe, and they're like, "Wow, what's this Sendoso company that I've never heard of? But they must be good." There's like, I even remember one of our first conferences when we were like a 15-person company. We brought 10 people to it at our booth, and we were next to Adobe that had like 3 sales reps. They're like, "Whoa, Sendoso is a huge company." Little did they know, like 80% of our company was actually at that booth. But it goes back to like investing in the awareness early on, I think can drive long-term value and build a community too.
Love it. I mean, Kris, it's been an epic journey, an epic 8
Yeah.
years. Thanks for being so open, especially with your calendar, etc. I really appreciate it. We're going to link to Sendoso below. We'll link to your LinkedIn profile. Anything else we should mention or link to?
Link to the website if they want to learn more. We can link to some of those case studies or success customer examples. That could be a good way for us to showcase some of the creative things that can spark interest for listeners. And then if anyone's interested, follow me on LinkedIn. If you want to chat further, DM me, send me an email, Kris, K-R-I-S, @Sendoso, SENDOSO.com.
Love it. Kris, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tom.
All right, team, what do we think of that? Are you planning on doing a gifting campaign? Are you running your business like Kris? What I liked about this is that Kris clearly understands what he likes doing and is good at, and has essentially sculpted a role that I think he must be excelling at, because he's done that purposefully, brought in the co-CEO to handle more of the day-to-day running of the company so he can do partnerships, strategy, thought leadership. So I really love that. That's the big learning for me. Thanks to Fame for producing the show. That's fame.so. Thanks to Kris for coming on, and thanks to you for listening.